You eat that apple over.
It was very delicious.
She has two young children. She knows that if she doesn't finish it, it might not be there.
Actually, I have two young children, so I love the house, so I could actually eat it.
There you go, yeah. Don't set it down or it's gone.
Mom. All right, so on the record, all the recordings are up, awesome. Attendance for the audio record, we have in the room, Miss Linda, Pam, Eddie, Evan, he's number 6, Sid, Paul, Shelley, Nina, Brian, Jen, myself. Let's just knock out the minutes that we have. So we have minutes from March 14th. So you don't have a chance to read them, have any questions? I know there was one edit, which was a typo, right?
Yep.
Nothing major. Any questions, comments, concerns?
We are very blessed to have such a good news today. This is super impressive. We're consistent is all get at.
And
Of course, we didn't know that he wasn't there Sunday.
Obviously very important.
Wow.
We
That's right.
Actually, Lauren, you invoked his inner Evan.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, you did, yeah, you reminded us of things we had agreed upon, that type of.
Yeah.
Right. I think we all said the same thing. We already agreed on this last meeting. Let's move on.
In her,
I move we can get.
So move. Thank you.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same. All right. Evan will make a move. Alright, so general housekeeping, Kim Foley is going to be joining us to talk financial things. I know we had some questions that popped up. She's not able to join us tonight. The plan is for next week. You won't be here, so if you can ask questions, yes, we will ask them. Same for anyone else. Let's maybe try to put together a list of questions.
Would you ask me if it's further, then I would ask the question.
I'll let Brian do that.
I can further.
And see if you can change your interval.
We got the same hairstyle, so.
All right, awesome. Let's see, what else? I don't know if it was mentioned, but going forward, we are just putting together questions for legal counsel. They're sending us memos, but I don't think in the cadence of what we're doing now, we'll come every time. So budget conscious, we're going to not bill hours if we don't need them. So that is the current plan. If that changes, if someone feels that that's not working out, then it comes back up for discussion. Fair enough?
That's a good copy.
And that way we really have one call in the room and help them out. All right, so last meeting on Sunday, we did not have minutes, Evan wasn't there to be honest with minutes, so we're going to put those together and have those ready by, we were going to draft minutes based on the recording next Thursday. We're not meeting this Sunday.
So you're looking, so, okay, I can listen to the recording and try and prepare some minutes.
If you can, great, if not, tell us what that needs to look like.
Sure, I can try.
If you can.
Well, yeah, because I was thinking that when Kelly does his part and gives it to us, it really is reflective of what we discussed. So I think with a combination of what he did, just something that says that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's, a lot of the Sunday sessions, it's meant to be a drafting session, reading through, coming up with drafts for this meeting, hash out any decisions. We do not have Kelly's stuff to review this meeting, so we're going to do what the drafting session does and look at number 7, no 7. And talk through that tonight. There's no meeting Sunday, and then before our meeting next Thursday, Kelly will have a draft version for us to talk about next Thursday. For the mayor, administrator, and for the fund option.
Am I allowed to throw a
Yes.
monkey wrench
Absolutely.
into the, okay, thank you.
And then potentially.
So, after the meeting on Sunday, I chatted with Paul about, I wanted to know, because he made comments, multiple comments during our last meeting, about how basically nothing is changing.
Which Paul?
This Paul. Mr. Braskett,
For the record.
for the record. And, so I asked him, how he was feeling about it, and he said that he feels like the mayor still has too much power. And it is absolutely critical that I feel that we are all, we're all in, we're all bought into this. And whatever we present in the end, we all have to believe in it or it has no chance of passing. So, Paul and I kind of kicked it around a little bit and he said he felt like, you know, originally we weren't gonna give the mayor a veto, we've changed that.
What? No, he didn't change that.
We did change that last, on Sunday.
Because people were, on Sunday, we changed it because people were, there was the other side of that. There was a concern of, there wasn't a balance. There was absolutely
Oh, I
part of the
got
discussion
you.
on Sunday.
No vote in the meeting itself.
No vote in the meeting, but
Yeah.
veto power, right?
Right.
And then the second thing is, the power of the purse. So Paul told me that his concern, and please interrupt me if I get any of this wrong, told me that his concern is that, you know, even if we set a spending limit, above which dollar amount cannot be spent without council's approval. That does not stop whoever is mayor from, and we kicked around the idea of $5,000 on Sunday. It does not stop the mayor from spending, you know, up to $4,999 an unlimited amount of times. So I asked him point blank, if we lower the dollar amount and we cap the number of times the mayor can spend this dollar amount, will that go of any, you know, how far will that go to making you feel better about it? And he said a lot.
So I think that's a concern that we should probably table until we have Kim Pulliam here to maybe explain how government spending works. Because no money can be spent unless it's appropriated by council. Right, period.
That's why it was not clear about.
Yeah, so.
Well, the general
no-
fund.
Yeah,
And I-
no money can be spent unless it's appropriated by council. But council can appropriate funds in such a way that says, you know, we have appropriated $20,000 for the general administration budget, right? And then within that general administration budget, right, what we're saying, when we're saying setting a threshold, then up to that $5,000 number we were kicking about, the mayor wouldn't have to go back to council for a more specific appropriation. Right?
That's where I'm concerned.
Or to re-engage. I mean, I don't know, again, I think that Kim Pulley can best explain it to make sure that we all understand how it works before we hang too heavy a concern on it, because in the end, the other end of that would be that, you know, the administration would have to come back. You know, the other side, the other swing of that pendulum is that the administration would have to come to the council every time they need to spend money. Hey, we need to go buy Staples, can we spend $5? Right, hey, we need to
Well,
buy
no,
toilet paper.
That's actually not what he said. That's not what I said either. Limiting the number of times and,
So what's the number?
well,
And
you
then,
know,
and then when you
that's,
set a number, once you hit that number,
yeah,
and you need to buy Staples.
right.
So I think that
Right.
that is a valid point to have that conversation with Kim Pulley. I think there's also, I don't know what it is, but Kelly pointed it out. Excuse me. there is also something legalese, precedent, whatever, against doing the exact scenario that you said, spending $4,999 and coming back and spending $4,999. There is some mechanism, I don't remember what
Paul
it
spoke to that.
That is about,
Paul, our council, Paul.
you
Have
guys
any of you,
talk,
have any of you gone online and pulled up any of the financials for the village? There's, when you look under fiscal on the village, it talks about, it has Kim's information a little bit there. And then you can see month by month, you can pull up what the financials look like. And it'll be 20 pages, legal size, 30 to 40 entries per page. You can see all the different divisions of, where money goes. And it would be really worthwhile.
If you look and you go to the very bottom of the financials, you can see every check the village has written into whom. Because she posts the outstanding checks, the checks that are cleared. You can see that there's a whole lot of expense reimbursement that goes on in the village. But you can see every single expenditure.
And I think it would, to have her talk about it, and, because even if somebody does something, if you're paying attention, you can see it.
Yeah.
I'm concerned that this is getting into the weeds, which we can caution to get. And I just have concerns that there will be unforeseen results of this kind of establishment in a charter. My guess is, if you look at all the other charters, they did not do things like this. Now, I may be wrong, if somebody can look, but
Are you talking about limiting the
Yes.
amount of money the mayor can
Yes.
spend, or somebody can
I
spend
think-
at one time?
I guess it's the concern that somebody might have used it, or is the concern that, I mean, I guess, is it a worry that it's already happened? Is it just a worry that it could happen?
Has it happened?
No.
Has it happened that we're aware?
I have a question to ask you in relation to what Mr. Brassman said to me on Sunday. He used the purchase of the tractor as an example, but I thought, and I think you were on council when this happened, that council did actually approve that expenditure.
Council passed specific legislation to appropriate the funds and to authorize the entering of account.
yeah, I just made that up. I didn't know we bought that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's what we, actually, that was a big issue for a bunch of
I knew
people.
about the truck. I didn't know about that.
The truck was also approved by council. A specific piece of legislation was passed to appropriate the funds and to authorize the mayor to enter into contract for purchases.
Right.
And both of those items, if memory serves, are well above any number that we're talking about writing a check.
Yes, they are.
Yes,
Yes, they are. And so I just wanted to, because I thought you actually were talking about the tractor, because there were people at the time who said,
picked the wrong product.
I actually think
Next
that's
time, maybe the
interesting.
station.
Because there were people, rumoring that this was something that our mayor did on her own, and it was completely ridiculous, but I had remembered specifically that council had approved this purchase. I mean, specifically approved the purchase, so I just wanted to double check with Brian.
So I think that restoring veto power, I think that's a good point. And also, I understand as far as too much power for the mayor still. I don't know that, I guess my question would be, and it's for everybody, would we be better off, given the fact that we talk things in circles like we do? Would we be better off looking at Kelly's draft and see where it lands and then revisiting that discussion once we have the written, here's what we're proposing and we need to roll that back versus an idea.
There's one thing I thought of, that if everybody is, I don't want to be an obstructionist, if everybody is okay with having a veto power, then that's the way of the charter commission, and I'm just gonna go with that. I'll give my objections, but someone also mentioned to override a veto of 6 or 7, and that's, to me, I think I would have it at 5. I
at 7. Just because that is, our Congress is 2/3.
Right.
So that's over 2/3, and I think that'd be a,
Well, that's what
I
I'm saying.
forgot that point, yeah.
That's what I'm
that
saying,
was-
maybe we look at it when it's written and
I mean,
feel better about it versus kind of go.
Yeah, because then we'll see all the powers that are given to the mayor,
I
and
guess-
then it will see,
Yeah,
and it's
so,
kind of a stall, because it doesn't seem like it's too strong or.
I guess my whole general theme from the very beginning, and this is the council as well, is what is the check and balance for the mayor? Now, we were talking about the mayor, so that's what I was thinking of, what is the check and balance for the position of mayor? If she wants to do something, or he wants to do something in the future, what is the, I know they're elected official, and because you've got the administrator now, that is going to be working directly for the mayor, there's just a lot of power there. And maybe that's the way that everybody wants it to go. But it's just more about checks and balances.
It's not the way I want it to go. I mean, I didn't disagree with anything.
comes up next week, when we always got extract, be the voice of Paul, is not here.
I'll remember.
You would have the voice of Jen. But no, I mean, I think that things like that, they're worth bringing up. Obviously, we talk things to the circle, so you sometimes just have to walk away and come back to it, right? Because you think of something when you go home.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Can I ask one more question? I thought that Paul of Ricker Eckler was saying, so there's a difference between, I didn't think he was talking about the money that could be spent without specific consideration by the council. I thought he was actually talking about, bid work.
That's a different.
So, because that's what I thought he was talking about. Because if he wasn't talking about that, then it's actually exactly the same then.
If I may, would it be good for you to type up your questions so we can send them to Paul, so it can be answered, instead of posing for people who don't remember?
I was hoping someone would do that.
Yeah, we were not.
I'm allowed to ask the question, right?
Oh, yeah, we're just saying we have a lot of.
I can say we were not discussing good work.
No, I know we were not discussing bid work, but I'm not sure that that's not what he was answering.
Put the best question to Paul.
Yep, we can add it to the list, absolutely. And that's also just a housekeeping item. If you have questions like that at any time, send them to me and Kelly. Kelly's at least once a week, probably gonna be condensing the questions and asking all questions. Do me a favor, so I don't reword it right now. All right. But yeah, if you have things like that, bring them up when you think of them, send an email when you think of them. Even if at the end of the day, we go the correction, at least we'll make sure we talk about it.
Ray, did Kelly send you any responses to the questions that we had last week? Because he was gonna send them.
I don't know. the second one.
Okay.
I didn't see them if he did. And he usually copies me, so I'm guessing he didn't. I don't know. I know I sent him some follow-ups. Did anybody else send Kelly some questions for Rick or Eckler? No? Okay. So you may just be holding on to it until he drafts. All right, so before we dive into Article 7, any other comments? Okay. So Article 7, we're just gonna start reading through the memo. He sent us some exhibits. Right. I should write it out for you. So subsequent to the protocol articles on the administrator, the charter next addresses other administrative department officers.
Bill, keep taking notes as you do. Here we go.
Oh, shit, right now. So issues and questions before the Charter Commission, working through provisions regarding administrative departments and personnel systems, including what administrative departments are created by the charter. Some charters make most departments subject to creation by council. Others go into much more detail. and gives us some examples between Dublin and Haslett. Does anyone have any burning comments that they already have on that? Or should we go with those examples this moment?
The only thing that, I was looking through OBETs and, is that we keep in mind that we really are a small, mostly residential home kind of community. When you start looking at OBETs, you can see that they're bigger, they've got more,
Business,
Yeah.
manufacturing, development.
so I think we'll be more on the lighter side, than the bigger side. of that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, the village shall have a department of law, a department of finance, and such other departments the council may create. So that's pretty high level.
But on the other hand, we don't have that level of manufacturing and size, et cetera. But what we do have is a fairly large community that you are a part of, Ms. Rainey, that has a heck of a lot of children. And it might be a good time to at least consider a recreation department.
And you know, I got that feedback from some of us in the village as well.
I'm sure that's what we're gonna say at Children's Czar.
There's also the opportunity, to have boards and commissions, so we could have departments or, or boards. Now, a department would seem like it would be something that would have employees in it. And we do have some people, we have the maintenance person, that does some landscaping and the pool person. And boards are mostly the ones that are, made up of citizens that are setting, policies or, coming up with ideas and things.
Can I ask a question? I know we have employees in the pool. How does that work? Like, are they employees in the village for the summer? Are they?
They're seasonal, yeah.
Seasonal.
Okay.
It's an office person, a pool manager,
One or two part-time office people, the manager, and a gavel of lifeguards, probably not more than 5 or 6, I would think.
and lifeguards, that's the appropriate multiple of lifeguards and jaguars.
That's what I was gonna ask.
That's the,
So I just put it out there because, that is something that's customized to our community.
Well,
And
You said a recreation department?
yeah, but Pam just pointed out that it might make more sense to think of it as a board. And then people who are interested in creating some activities, because I rode past Brian's house the other day. And it looks to me that that little park that's there is going to be damaged by having, a lot of trees are gonna be taken down.
well, I don't know the park being damaged, because it's gonna get bigger.
What is?
Park.
They're putting another,
That's space.
there's lots on the other
Yeah,
side.
there's-
Oh, they're gonna add to the park? I didn't know that part.
Yeah, so
That's helpful.
That space is getting bigger,
which
so
is good, because as soon as there's a through street, there's a lot of kids coming.
oh,
You ain't lying.
I just saw 5 new little kids I've never seen before.
I went out there and forced yes.
Oh, yeah. So
Is
there's,
there gonna be new equipment too?
well, that's not too.
Oh,
I got it, I'm just
The
asking.
village gets
So just-
$500
let me ask-
from each
let
one
me
of
ask
those houses.
this.
You just said.
A Parks and Recreation Department, what I'm hearing you say, and I don't know if I'm hearing it right, I just want to clarify, is you think that a department versus a board, you think a department's more like,
A department has employees.
More permanent.
Yeah, and if a department does what other people tell it to do, I think boards are the ones that come up with initiatives, and
There you go.
and so are you thinking that a Parks and Recreation Department
that's just the difference.
So
more appropriate or a board?
if I may ask a question,
I don't know.
Okay.
what do you see being the difference between what like say a recreation department would do and what the MPCA does right now? Like, would it be fun
Well-
sports parties and like?
I see it as more often, more activities more often with a focus, in the summertime that would account for the diversity of kids here and the size that just, I mean, this is a lot of people that live around here that don't have kids. I see it. They go right by our house to pick up kids. There's a handful of kids there. And the little kids that live next door to me say there's no one to play with. But in our park, if they were raining like this,
So in my head, a Parks and Recreation Department isn't necessarily just the kids, right? We have a lot of just, it's a beautiful neighborhood. We've got ponds, we've got a playground, we've got a pool. I think that we have the bike paths also count. I think having a department that this is what they deal with isn't necessarily a bad idea. Those things aren't temporary and going away. I think it makes sense to have somebody who that's their focus versus having administrators who they've got a building project going on or something else, maybe isn't going to be able to focus on it as much. So I think that there's value add now and also to enhance the community.
But I don't see, other than the pool manager who's seasonal, that you would typically need to hire permanent staff for a recreation department. I just don't see it.
The other question that I have in this is that currently, right, and this is, I'm trying to juxtapose what we have now. These are all things that would fall under the community committee that is handled by council. Now, say what you will about our current community committee, right, that this would fall within their purview. So the question is this something we are taking out of their hands, right, by creating it? If we codify in the charter, it is permanent, right? So that, at least until another charter review comes up and it gets changed through that or referendum or whatever, this is, I feel like, well, I am 100% in favor of getting something out there that would create, regular summer kid activities. I don't know that the charter is the right place to put it.
No, I think, you mentioned the idea of the administrator, that came to mind as far as, do we think his duties are gonna be so full that he doesn't have time to do some of that, particularly parks, maybe not so much recreation. Right? And what about the MPCA? How do we feel about what they're doing now? And if we do something, do we,
Well,
I think I know that, but they're really doing that job of recreation.
They are.
They are.
Large extent, yes, I would agree.
They are doing that job.
Who's to say you can't have the same kind of parks and rec group that acts the same way as the NPCA?
So then we don't need someone to do those jobs, and if they're doing it already.
Well, I don't,
I totally disagree with that, and I will tell you why I disagree with it. I think it may actually be something that we need to take into consideration. Because one of the things that I have thought since I moved here, not only that there's a lack of stuff for kids to do in Miller Park, I mean, a virtually complete lack of stuff. The other thing was, until the MI development, there are no sidewalks here, none. There are no sidewalks here. And no one has seemed to care that there are no sidewalks. And kids go into the pool. I mean, I see kids who start on Woodley, start on, way up on Wildwood and walk.
Cleveland happened.
And walk all the way down to the pool, and there's not a sidewalk in the village. Now, I feel like that is something that
It's like having sidewalks in the yard.
well, that's,
I can tell you historically that this has been an issue that has been batted around by the administration and by the community association for years and years. The consensus of the residents is that they don't want sidewalks and they do not want streetlights. I'm just telling you that.
Well, when was the last time there was when was the last time, I mean,
well, I guess before we go further on that path.
yeah,
we're
the
trying
trying
to.
to- I did want to say one more
Yes,
thing.
go ahead.
We do have the option of putting in here, except Department of Law and Department of Finance, council may abolish, combine, merge, change. The village shall have a Department of Law, Department of Finance, and such other departments as council may create.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we can reserve that to council.
We should decide minimally what do we want to say there should be created, and then they can create anything else they want.
I would,
And I feel like what we should be looking at is, police, fire,
Finance,
or,
finance.
finance, law, engineering, and, well, the streets typically falls under our engineering. Right?
In other words, all the ones we have now.
Yeah, no, I don't
Okay.
really see a need to create, while, no, I'm gonna say,
I get that.
I see a need for exactly what you're saying, and I will gladly come to every council meeting with you and tell them over and over again that we need that, but I don't think the charter's the right place to codify it.
All right, you all are witnesses.
I don't know why you
Eric,
think that
Eric,
it's not the right place to codify that.
Because a council would need to, we need to fund it, there needs to be I just don't think it's the right place. It's-
Well, I guess, let's see what Eric wants to say. He's
Yeah,
been
go ahead,
very
Eric.
good holding his.
Just two quick things. So sidewalks are obviously a capital improvement project, indoor pathways. And so we have a lot of discussions going on at the moment that are preliminary stage of planning and zoning regarding pathway, at least a major arterial pathway, and many other things that work over the next 2 years. And that's going to be something council determines on. If they have sidewalks that they've inherited, they have to have a sidewalk program for maintenance. And many of the younger residents are asking this very question: is where are the sidewalks? And the survey dictated that out. And so those things are going to be something for consideration, and how that's handled is, a different project, quite frankly. On the note, my only 2 cents on apartments is just to make sure that there is a planning and zoning department, so your zoning officer may fall within it as well. And if the planner is kept around, that's also a good thing.
We know.
It appears to me from reading through these, that when a department is created, it requires, a director. In the case of the two of these that say there will be a Department of Law, well, the first paragraph says how you will sign contracts. It'll be done contractually. And then that next paragraph says, in the event we do what. So if we create new departments, are we creating the need for a new department head?
Well, yes,
Sure.
yes,
Hiring people?
yes.
Yes.
You're creating, if you're creating a department, it has to have a person.
Are we gonna have a,
Well, that's right.
For
any one of the things that you mentioned?
Yeah, they all-
Police and.
yes, we have a police chief, we have a fire chief, we have a law director, we have a finance director, we have a village engineer.
Yeah, but that's by contract.
Yeah, right, they're all
Are
contracted.
they all?
Okay, that's what I'm
Contract
saying.
employees.
They're all.
Do they all have
Right,
that?
but I'm saying if you actually.
No, they all have their own companies. Go ahead, again. Sorry, we were cross talking. Go ahead, I'm not gonna shut it.
No, I mean,
I think you're right.
some of these have language saying, do we allow them to contract for it? And then in the event they create the department, they have all these long lists of things those people are responsible for. Are we gonna end up hiring people? I mean, I think all that's necessary in here is to say for the law director, okay, the village is authorized to sign, so-and-so signs the contract with approval of council. Same thing with the finance director, that these go on for paragraphs and paragraphs. And then I realized that because they're talking about, they have an individual they hired, and they're very specific about the duties they get them. Never mind, I just wanted to share this. That's all I'm trying to say.
Again, I don't care with being general, but I think that those are the departments we need to call out, right? That these duties, this is where we're saying, hey, these are the things you need to run a village. And those 7 things that we listed off are things that I don't think we should not make the village have. Right, I think we need, because if we don't say you have to have a zoning department, then
They may not.
they may not.
No, I actually agree with you, and I'm sorry I brought it up. I just never know when to bring stuff up.
No,
But the things that we need to think about,
It's a great thing to do.
kind of get it.
Well, I think that's still a thing to bring up, and like I said, outside of the commission members, that's something that someone from the village has brought up to me that they would like to see.
It just doesn't sound like a part.
No, it's probably not for this setting, or, yeah.
If we were 3 times the size, I'd say, yeah, put it in the charter, right? I
Yeah.
think that then we have a big enough demand, a big enough need. I feel that that's a big enough department. Right now, I don't think it is.
I'll show up if you are ready for it, but I don't know if they need to modify the chart.
Exactly.
But I mean, that's
That
not
was
to say that
just my
it can't be
point
created
too. I
later.
didn't want to include all those things in the charter.
If
So-
you give the village the opportunity of creating departments that they need, that should be adequate.
Eric, did you hear, Vic say that he's been studying for years the sidewalk issue and the light issue? Did you hear him say that?
I heard something on that effect, yes.
I'm gonna bring us back.
Okay,
What sidewalk?
I'm confused about that.
Well, we can talk about that.
Okay.
It's a charter, not a sidewalk. So. Operation, there, I mean, this is basically the catch-all, right? It's the first thing in a lot of them, the village is required to have A, B, whatever, and can create other things as the council so sees fit. So what I'm hearing you say, Brian, is that you think those things should be law, fire, police,
Without calling.
Finances, finance,
finance,
I think
and
some,
Planning zone.
zoning / planning. Is there an engineer in there too?
Yeah, engineer.
All right.
and the issue would, I think would be is there a department, for instance, could the department be the Department of Safety or something?
Yeah,
And then fire and police are underneath it,
under that.
yeah.
So it could, but then I think that we're talking about a different kind of structure, and you would need that. So if we break them out, then we're not necessarily looking at a change, right? So your director would be your police chief, your director would be your fire chief. If you have a safety department, then you need a director of safety, which is a different.
Unless the police chief was both the director of safety and chief of
Would
police.
that be appropriate?
Oh, there's no safety on our list of why. So,
Yeah,
Well, the discussion is joining fire and police into a single department of safety.
right now, the only issue I had, is that, our EMS, chief, it might be beneficial to have that person report to somebody that actually knows about, fire and safety, safety issues and on a larger scale. And could help set, goals for the department, the fire department. And we usually aren't supposed to get involved with what the current situation is. But having people report to people that actually can help make it a good department,
so
just saying.
could we run through New Albany as they have this city section and see if we like that, the way that's, because I feel like we're bouncing all over the place. I'm just looking for
We
structure of the conversation.
You all.
Or no, we didn't get a particularly good, organizational chart of the village. So now we're talking about making an organizational chart, yeah.
So you're gonna read it?
Challengingly organized. So, okay, so creation and alteration. Creation, we talked about. Alteration, except for the Department of Law and Finance, council may abolish, combine, merge, change, or alter any department in the village. Do we like that idea, accepting they can't, so in other words, they cannot alter or get rid of, or abolish, or combine these certain things?
Yeah, anything other than what we say that they have to have, we are giving them free rein. But I don't know
Well,
about, but if you're just saying law and finance,
I'm just saying, can they combine law and finance later if they want to?
Now, this says except for
Well, I
Department
know, that's
one.
what I'm saying, is do we want to make that an exception?
No.
those are two different.
So we do want to make, to make it an exception to the ability to
Right,
change.
Yes.
yes.
So yes, you can abolish, change, merge, whatever you want to do, except these guys.
Yeah,
So we-
the ones we've listed.
Except for these, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So these are the exceptions. Is zoning a contract or is it a department?
No, it's a department.
Are you?
I have, yeah, so I would technically fall, the way the hierarchy here works is that it's mayor, me, and the code enforcement officer. So and typically in many regular municipal hierarchies, it would be, so my title officially is director of planning. So then code enforcement officer that falls beneath me at that point. And in many departments, that's usually the way it works. So, but it's not contract.
But the mayor is the department head.
Technically, she's the head of all departments the way we run here.
She's not the department head, she's the CEO.
Yes, that way
All
too.
departments report to her.
What about the
But zoning
department?
doesn't have a department head.
Yeah.
So where does the administrator doesn't involve?
Well, we don't have an administrator right now.
They would.
I was giving an example.
Already formally got.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I got you. I missed that term.
So if you were to read New Albany, do they have a police department or a
Well,
safety?
hold on, we're in the spirit of not jumping around.
Okay.
803. Department directors, so departments shall be under the supervision of directors. As far as the appointment of directors, they are, shall be appointed and removed by the administrator subject to the consent and approval of council.
Those two.
All other directors shall be appointed by the administrator and shall serve at the pleasure of the administrator. With the consent of council, the administrator may serve as the director of one or more departments or may appoint a person as a director of two or more departments. So in other words, law director is called out and director of finance is called out, but that is with approval of council. Everything else, the administrator's got the power over. And what are the thoughts on that?
I think that's fine. I would only amend it to make those carve outs the list that we.
I think we need to indicate which departments we have in mind.
Well, these,
So these are all with,
the list we've already named.
so those are all with council, with the approval of council. Well, because the rest of them, for example, New Albany has more than this, law and finance.
For all these positions, maybe council members can answer this. Do we have job descriptions for every position? So we have no job description?
We have some job.
Well,
Yeah,
for some,
some.
but he said all.
Not, no, not
Do
all.
we post these in public forum somehow?
When we replace the person, yeah. But, so the last person at this level that we hired was Eric, right? And
I'm thinking really any employee of the village, I mean, speaking of these directors and stuff, any employee.
I'm reasonably certain that we have. But again, we don't have that many employees, right? So, I'm sure the last time we posted fiscal officer, there was a job description, right? And that was 4-ish years ago now, right?
So if I wanted to know what the maintenance person did, what is their?
There's a job description. But it's,
Well, okay, so let me circle back to that. When we asked that question of the council people, a lot of them said, Dolly, I hope so, which makes me think that even if there is one, no one knows what it is or where it is. For all intents and practical
Maybe
purpose,
that's something we make a requirement, that we, all these have job descriptions.
could be.
You know what could actually save the village money in the end is if we had an HR department. That's really what we need, because we seem to have a really good track record of having to pay a lot of money to employees that we've
Well, that's a lawyer too.
forced out.
All right. Appointment of director. Go circle back to that. So you want all directors for these departments that we listed to be appointed or removed, subject to consent and approval of council. You don't want the administrator to have direct power over any of those. Is that what you just said?
that's what I said, but I don't have that strong.
Wait a minute, say that again?
So we'll read it again. So, as it reads in law, the law director and director of finance shall be appointed and removed by the administrator subject to the consent and approval of council, right? The law director of law and director of finance shall serve at the pleasure of administrator and council. All other directors, so any other department created, is appointed by the administrator alone and shall serve at the pleasure of the administrator. Right, with the consent of council, the administrator may serve as the director of one or more of these departments, or may appoint one person as the director of 2 or more departments.
Yeah, I don't want the mayor to have any of this.
Well, this
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
but that's not even a question.
Right,
It's the
right.
administrator or council.
We do, yes,
So
and we definitely want the administrator to do this because that's what we're paying the administrator for.
do we want him to have to do it with the consent and approval of council.
So
Some things.
going back to the list, so we also listed, police as a department. So is the appointment, the hiring or firing of the police chief a administrator alone duty, or is that with the consent of council? That's the question. Is the hiring or firing of the engineer an administrator alone duty, or is that with the consent of council?
As much as I would love to exclude council from all of this, it's impractical to do so.
So I hear you.
It's
And-
completely impractical, because really, the administrator needs to be working from priorities set by the council.
So,
Yeah.
so I hear you, and the way I'm thinking is that council's bite at that apple is, because I assume we're gonna write language that these are not gonna be direct employees, but rather contracted employees for most of these, right? And so council's bite at the apple is the appropriation for the contract.
I like it because I think if you have council as part of this decision to hire and fire, then that forces the administrator to work with both the mayor and the council, have built relationships with both of these groups. And I think it really would go a long way for some accountability and a check and balance of everything.
Or
I
it
hear
will
you.
turn into a gigantic quagmire, but I think we
So-
probably have to try.
Right, so back to my idea, where is council's bite at? Because if we say the council has to, what was their consent, right? So then they get to decide whether or not they're gonna appropriate the money, and they get to decide whether or not they're gonna consent. And then they get another point of consent.
So does the administrator and the mayor.
Well, no, the administrator and the mayor can only ask, can we have the money?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the,
So I understand the power of the purse. I don't know that I want that to be what is letting us hire or fire someone. I almost want council to have consent and approval so that they've got the buy-in of this person for the job and they don't bicker about the money.
I'm just trying to,
Right, I see what you're saying.
No, I
Conversation.
agree with you, I agree with you, there's no balance to this whatsoever. Council controls the entire thing from start to finish. They could choose not to fund a position that they don't agree with. They have the power to take or give funding. They have the power to hire and fire. They have the power to do the whole thing.
they don't have any power to direct the duties of the person that they hire.
sure,
That's a lot of all not power.
All right, I don't think we're gonna get,
Director makes a suggestion
Well,
and then the council approves.
I don't think we can get around it.
I think that what they're trying to do here, honestly, is they're not worried about the council not giving money. I think what they're trying to do is not bog down the council with HR. That's my understanding of the intent of this clause.
Right.
Which is multiple ones.
He was talking about the money in terms of they have all of the power in this situation. Not only can they,
Is there anybody that's ever been hired here that doesn't get approval of council?
I've never seen that in
Lifeguards,
13 years.
So typically speaking, so when the new position of mine was created, council, which Brian served on at the time, approved that position hire. Now, in these cases with the chief of police, they approved the appointment. I believe the finance director, they approved the appointment as well. Now, with other positions like the zoning officer, like lower level positions, I believe that the mayor just,
Oh, yeah, you're right, the mayor just hires them.
that's what happens in those cases. But there are certain positions here and that require, the approval of council, because the money's already appropriated, right? So in certain positions, those people simply get hired. Police officers are a little different.
The council hadn't had a say in that particular position.
When the position is created, the answer is yes. But then when they go to hire someone, in certain cases, the mayor has the say in this case.
And I don't like that personally. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like you've got a group of, some went through the council process, and some didn't. I mean, what's the line? If there's a definitive line, I think it's fine. If you say everybody or nobody. then
I'm
you've got
not,
a
you know what,
system.
I'm not disagreeing that we may have to go, that, I'm not disagreeing with probably gonna have to do it this way. I'm just wondering, just like when we were discussing the mayor's powers and you and I were talking about that, is there a check on this? Is there any kind of check?
So,
Eric.
not necessarily,
Hi, Eric.
yeah, no problem. Not necessarily answer that question directly, but I think the check, and if you remember, Mr. Davidson's discussion at this table, the way they set theirs up was that the directors had to be hired and fired with council's approval. That was a stopgap to not allow for major disruption under certain, as we know, certain disruptive political circumstances or elections in the case. But when you talk about day-to-day operations, I think it's important to denote the difference between those two things. So, for instance, we went through a period of time here where I had no zoning officer and no zoning clerk at this thing, and it was several months of that, and it was not a good scene because we had permits coming in, and I was here to try to keep things just above water, but it was painful, and the mayor tried to move as fast as she could to get people hired. We didn't have good candidates. We had to get a temp in here. So even under the best of circumstances, what I'm saying is, even where one person's making a decision, you can still run the problem. I can't imagine if council had to have the say so on these lower level positions on every single one. It would be a major bog down issue. And you wouldn't be able to run operations with low, where you have your tier 1 level people and you need them. You need your line level employees. You need to have it. Somebody's just got to hire them and go with it. So,
Well,
I think that's what they're trying to do in this
Yeah.
clause, just differentiate where that line. is.
Correct.
Obviously,
And Eric
it's
has-
wrong at first, and then-
Eric's
Yeah.
right too, and as Maury talks, when a position is created, council creates that. And there's just a job description. So the full-time zoning clerk was created by council, the position, and there is a job description for that. But that person is hired by the mayor, and the position's there, and then the mayor can hire the person. The same way with the zoning code enforcement officer. The position is created by council, but then the people that are in that for day-to-day operations is hired by.
But when you say job description, are you talking about a paragraph? of a
No, actually, I helped write
Something-
some of the job descriptions, good ones with, what's the minimum, education requirements, experience, and here's the duties, and here's who they, report to, and
I see, Tiffany, you're here. What have you seen as far?
I've never seen a job description. We've been asking for a job description for numerous things, and honestly, we have not been able to produce one. We were basically, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, we were basically given the ad of what that would be. But I don't want to speak for all of it, but you can, I'm looking at you because we've asked for your job description. We've actually asked for.
I have a copy of my job description.
We would, that's a
Send it
document
over
we've
to you.
asked.
Yeah, let
Yes,
me
we would
find it.
love to. I'm just not putting you on the spot.
All the job descriptions are here. I can't speak as to why between the administration and council, these things haven't transferred. But I will simply say that every position has a job description, and typically speaking, sometimes the job descriptions are one and the same of what the ad is, quite frankly. And so sometimes that's how that works. I mean, as long as that meets the legal criteria of the job description and or the ad, and they can be one and the same.
Once again, if we're gonna add a department, it needs to be an HR department. And I'm not joking.
we have HR functions, the administrator may be able to do some of the HR functions.
I was frankly hoping that would be.
That would be part of it.
Personnel department or administrative.
Well, you can name it as a department. And an administrator, if they can do that job, can be appointed as the director. But I would like to revisit an idea that we should, right now, we're only talking about what departments we are enforcing and how the director is.
Right, this is really,
Whereas
this
like
is,
job descriptions of
Right.
anything other than directors is probably, should be tabled for
Not.
another time.
all this is talking about is, I don't know that council doesn't necessarily need to approve of, I don't know, the seasonal maintenance helper.
Well, but that's not the
But-
director, that's not the director.
Well, that's what I'm about to say.
Oh, okay.
Council doesn't need to do that, but I do agree they probably do need to have input on the directors.
There you go. So we're all in agreement that any director at least for the departments that we have listed, are, appointed by the administrator, and subject to the consent and approval of council. Yes?
Yes.
Move on.
All right. So we decided yes.
We probably decided that 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's probably not my fault. Next time.
Why didn't you should have signed in earlier?
I'm real tired.
Yeah, I think we all are. Have we reached, agreement on what those departments are? Because I've got down law, fire, police, finance, zoning, engineer.
You know,
Go ahead.
You want
it doesn't, no, I do want HR, but that's not what I'm about to say. It does not make sense to have fire and police not under the heading of safety. It doesn't make sense to have them separated.
Yeah, self-directors or co-directors.
You can still have a fire chief and you can still have a police chief and the police chief could be the director. There's nothing preventing that.
Yes, I would like to see that, since we have such a small fire.
I have a question.
Oh,
Can
God.
can the directors be a member of council? Right, because it's not a position, so they have an elected
No,
position.
that's like
So-
way too much power. That's way too much.
I'm just asking because currently, right, we have a safety chair, right? Is that safety chair, what you're really imagining as that safety director?
We just said
Doesn't
the
council
council.
want to be more in they're setting strategies, they're setting
And
policies,
what would
they're not supervising.
What would a director do other than set strategy and set policy and then?
Supervise.
No, and then allow the administrator to supervise?
The administrator's not gonna.
The police
supervise.
chief is
We've
not
already
setting.
said that the administrator is if you go back to the duties of the administrator is already the supervisor of these people.
So what I'm hearing you say is you want to call out somewhere that a council member cannot hold one of these directors.
Or cannot. But I'm just saying that looking at how we operate today, it functionally maps that the safety chair would be a safety director. That,
Okay, I get that, but a safety chair is not the same as a safety director, and I personally think it's not currently, Brian, and I personally think that if we gave that power to a council member, it's too much power. There's zero check
I
on
think the
that.
safety director actually knows something about safety services.
I would hope,
Yes,
but.
I mean, no, like,
I
really
hope
know what
safety
the law.
chair knows something about safety.
No, I mean, like,
Actually, they don't.
real knows about safety.
They
services.
don't.
A real knows.
So I'm
Enough to supervise a police chief and or a EMS chief.
I'm just, like I said, I'm causing trouble.
Yes, you are.
Provocateur, I think.
Yes, provocateur.
Do I have a discussion?
if I had to have it right now.
Yes, you hit me.
So it's a valid question. Do we want a council member to be able to be the department director, and let's table that and come back?
Maybe we said that you shall not hold no other positions within the, isn't there somewhere?
That's why
There.
But it's.
That's why I wanna come back.
I think we're all in agreement that.
We are.
So if we're all in agreement with.
I don't know, are we in
Honestly,
agreement?
no.
You say
I
no.
do not want them to be.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think we just need
I
to check and
wasn't
see where it's
even
called out.
necessarily saying that I was getting a favor. I just wanted to-
Ladies and gentlemen, we're moving on. Stop defending why we should move on. We're
Thank
moving
you,
on.
Brian,
That was 20 minutes of our lives.
You're
we
still
will
going.
never get
We're
back.
still going. Director of Law, qualifications, moving on. Director of Law shall be an attorney at law, duly authorized and licensed to practice law in the state of Ohio.
Here, here.
Cheers. Duties, Director of Law shall be the prosecuting attorney and legal counsel for the village, and subject to the direction of counsel, shall represent the village in all proceedings in courts or before the administrative board or body, any administrative board or body. The Director of Law shall perform other duties as required by this charter, by legislation of the village, by council, or by the administrator. The Director of Law shall not be required to represent any school district or any other unit of government other than the village.
So that can require.
Is this saying that the director of law is the magistrate for mayor's court?
No.
Okay,
But it is saying that the director of law is our prosecuting attorney, which is not how we are.
That's right.
right.
Well, this is, you'll notice these are both Dublin and New Albany, you're large enough, they have in-house lawyers.
Right.
So,
So we may not agree with all that.
No,
Right.
I believe we don't.
So I feel like we should probably slice out that prosecuting
Yeah.
attorney.
Keep the legal counsel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's, everything else is fine.
Subject to the direction of counsel to represent the village policies in court or before any administrative order body like that. Shall perform other duties as required by this charter, by legislation of the village, by council, or by the administrator.
I would like to ask if in the way we're running now, does the mayor have any input to the solicitor?
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Currently, I would say that,
Yeah.
You mean, as we run today or
As we are today.
Yes,
so I would say that currently the mayor has an outsized,
very outsized,
with the law director.
has the majority of
But
the,
are we, is it our intent to remove the mayor entirely from that?
yes.
Because that's what.
I'm not sure. We
Well,
haven't
the
discussed.
administrator is, reports to the mayor, the administrator is on, in that, on that.
But I think what he's trying to get at is,
Mayor is.
the mayor is not listed here, so they shall perform other duties as required by the charter, legislation, council, or the administrator. The mayor
Yes.
cannot go to the law director and say this thing.
That's the point of having an administrator. I think that's
Yes.
fine.
That is the point of having an administrator.
So,
Why do we have a mayor at all?
well, she does other things, there's the big one.
I want to know what, we're discussing the administrator, eliminating the mayor totally.
We,
We're not, but
we
we're not.
discussed the duties of the mayor on Sunday.
Mayor,
So we limited the mayor to a handful of things. It was the ceremonial blah, 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 supervising the administrator, and one other thing.
For the marshal and the.
Yes.
So we must help, and we, he's putting together a draft for us to read, so I think maybe some questions will be in there, but
Okay.
so it's before this meeting.
Hey, and Dick, we also gave the mayor the power of veto. We weren't gonna give him our own power of veto, but we did.
Yeah, that was the thing I was on. So, right, so there you have it.
My main concern is, the administrator doesn't live here, the mayor does. I want to make sure that we do not strip the mayor of the ability to respond to residents.
Oh, no.
The mayor is the administrator's boss as well, so that relationship is not completely separate.
Okay.
If that helps.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
No, you're okay, but I think once Kelly gets that, read that section, take it off. Okay, so we liked everything in there. I'm just gonna check.
Except
Is
for
there-
prosecutor.
I crossed that out. Is there anything else, Shelley, I know that you're our reader, or is there anything else in any of the other charters that we need to call in here?
I thought that most of these were too long, and too specific. It's real, I mean,
What about the issue of the vacancy, like in no bets?
We haven't got that.
All right.
We haven't got the director of finance. So the director of finance shall be the chief financial officer of the village, shall exercise the powers, duties, and functions as required by the laws of the state of Ohio, this charter, legislation of the village, council, and give the full and complete information concerning the financial affairs and financial status of the village as required by the administrator or council. Concerns, things to add, things to take out? Awesome. This is where it's shaking, to be honest.
Well, can we go back to administrative code?
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say administrative code. There's another one that addresses law, and we're gonna have to get to that, let's just finish it all.
You're actually, I'm looking at them scrolling, sorry.
It's all right. Administrative code 806, page 8.
Yeah.
8:06, you're at
And just
8:04.
Just for the audio record, we did have Eric Fisher and Council Isaac McHugh join us as well.
So subject to the provisions of this charter, council shall adopt and may amend an administrative code which shall provide in detail the organization of the municipal government, define the powers and duties of each organizational unit, and set forth administrative procedures. Amendment.
We like that, we have any questions on that?
I was thinking it's not necessary. Have you seen the administrative rules of some of these places?
Well, but that's.
I mean, it's just, it's as bad as us going through this. And some of these don't, some of these other charters don't have a requirement for council to do that.
Well, I think-
So it's an awful lot of work for us.
I think that one of the problems is council doesn't have
I'm presuming.
they have very weak rules, they don't have any kind of code, they have virtually nothing.
They have rules of council.
But then the
Very-
administration doesn't have any policies and procedures.
Right, and the administration we have no policies and procedures. We're gonna have to do this. Do we have to make it 12 pages? We don't. But we need to put in some administrative codes.
I think, I will say that, I think, I agree with what Jen is
You mean in the
saying.
charter?
No.
No, this is a requirement that the.
Yeah.
the
We'll have to do it.
create, right, so this is a requirement.
We can have them do all this work.
Well, it doesn't, so it doesn't have to say council, well, it says council shall adopt, it doesn't say council shall draft.
Oh, right.
So council shall adopt, I would assume, since this is administrative code, largely with the input of the administrator, right? And what this is, by my reading, saying is that we need the administrator to say, yes, I recognize these are our departments. These are the job duties of each department head, or what was the
Define it as a.
I stand reviewed.
And then write those job descriptions, right? That's all this is saying.
And then,
I just didn't want entire council to produce any documents similar to what we've got going here.
Right, it doesn't take a long time.
I
Yes,
would,
it would.
I guess we couldn't stop them from doing that if that's what they wanted, but I would certainly hope that they would trust the administrator to do that, and then they adopt it. So the administrator hands them the document and says, this is what I think it should be, and they review it. They say yay or nay, or change this.
Right.
And it does say amendments to and revisions of code should be made by council. So they've got the power to come back and say, hey, that thing that we approved is terrible, let's change that. So they've got to change.
Okay.
You know, I remember you were very impressed with Johnstown. It would be interesting to see if they have an administrative code. Because they had a really nice organizational chart. They had, and you even said how organized they seem.
Oh, my God.
I think that's what this is trying to do, is actually have it be organized.
I think that's.
Thank you.
And adopt the administrative code and make it such that our council people don't have to beg for job description.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Did you want to do it?
Procedures.
No.
Amendments to the revisions of the administrative code shall be made by council. Where the administrative code is silent as to a matter or function, the officers and employees of the village shall have and may exercise all powers and duties provided for similar officers and employees under the laws of the state of Ohio. However, provisions of the administrative code shall supersede those of the general laws of the state of Ohio in case of conflict to the fullest extent permitted by law.
Sure,
That's what the charter is.
that's how it goes.
All right. Personnel systems. Here we go. Merit principle. All appointments and promotions of municipal employees shall be made on the basis of merit and fitness demonstrated through a competitive selection process to the extent practical and accepted as otherwise provided by council. And except as otherwise provided by council. And then you like personnel stuff.
I do.
What, you got to get feedback there. What do you think?
I don't know.
Well,
It doesn't, you know, honestly, I don't see any references to the, you know, how it works, what the procedure would be.
Well, no, we're not writing the procedure,
I know, but she can't even get a freaking job description.
but we're requiring that someone write that.
Okay,
We
High
just,
level, very high level.
we just required that somebody write them, but this does nothing to deal with my concern about the majority of our issues have been with council members causing the village to have to pay out giant amounts of money to former employees, and this does nothing to deal with that.
So,
There's nothing to
I don't know.
force a council member to shut his or her mouth, so we don't have to pay out $80,000 for nothing.
Unfortunately, no charter will ever eliminate one's First Amendment rights, no matter how poorly they may use them. So I don't know that that explicit concern can be addressed.
Or having someone take advantage of the village.
Well, okay, so here's where I'm questioning this. So part of the problem is that there have been council members, even council members who are still on council currently, who have tried to, or did their best to get access to employees, have potentially created difficult work environments for employees, set us up for possible other lawsuits, and there's nothing to stop this because we don't have any kind of HR department. We have we have elected officials against elected officials and employees in the middle, and no one is there to kind of represent employment law in this conversation, and it costs the village money.
Well, council doesn't have any access to employees.
Wrong.
As far as giving them any direction to do anything.
So they can stay over them and shout.
They can harass them, which is what currently happens. On occasion, depending on-
A handout to add information.
So, yeah, this is an interesting environment, I will say, I've been working here for several years. So, to just preface it that way, so this is the smallest environment I've worked in most inland. And so that leads to more direct contact with elected officials than, on a daily basis than is perhaps normal in any other municipality, right? So we'll just leave it at that. Typically speaking, OBES was the next smallest one I worked at, but they had a decent hierarchy. Their administrator, as you have met him, strong personality, and so as he managed, just as his mayor and council managed him, he managed them, he managed his employees. And so the administrator, at the end of the day, a good administrator, and I worked for a couple, work as that buffer, okay, between elected officials, because it's not unusual for especially new elected officials to come and try to talk to employees on this side. I mean, there are things where they people have offered snowplow guys stuff to come and plow their driveway specific. So
that I consider normal.
Yes.
What I've heard about is very much abnormal and potentially setting the village up to have to pay out a large amount of money.
So if I may, there are things that go on that the administrator's job, and since you are setting it up this way, will function to buffer those concerns. And that just, good administrators block this stuff from happening. Employees can go to the administrator and say, hey, this makes me uncomfortable. I've been told this, I've been asked this, I've been approached about this. He's telling me or she's telling me to do this. The administrator goes and nips that stuff in the bud. And that's
the job.
That is the job of a good administrator. And if necessary, he or she will bring legal counsel to set people straight on what their duties and the law says in these areas. So that usually fixes it pretty fast.
But there's nothing, when you're talking about elected official, there's not a lot, and you talk about referendum, recount, or revote, and revote. I'm not sure what legal.
I disagree.
I don't know.
Just because a person is an elected official doesn't give them the right to sexually harass someone, sexually harass an employee. It doesn't give somebody the right, an elected official, the right to harass someone in some other way. These things,
That should be going to the police. That's a police issue.
Let me,
So if-
I'm talking about reality, you're talking about fantasy.
Sorry, can I jump on this? So I think he's bringing up a valid point. In that, when you have issues like that occur, that again, if they become criminal, that's a whole different ballgame, right? I mean, again, the administrative job is to then involve the police chief, there's an investigation, there's a proper protocol to follow when these things happen. I think though, going back to this, there are things, and again, other charters will have examples, but there are things to dictate how you discipline and remove a council member by the other members of council. There are ways to do that. There are different flavors of it, and that may be something you want to look at.
We already did, we
Yep.
did.
Okay.
So,
If these specific concerns aren't addressed there, maybe that's the place to go
These
back.
specific concerns are not addressed.
Then I don't believe that this is the place where they're gonna be addressed either, because, right, this isn't, we're talking about merit principle of how our employees, not our elected officials, are hired and fired. So we should put a pin in it, and if we don't find somewhere else to put it, we can go back to where we discussed council and forfeiture of office, and we can find a way to work it in there when we do another review of that section.
Okay. I'd like to point out that this section 807 deals with personnel systems. Only two of the charters that we have examples have this. And paragraph B is totally unnecessary because we don't have civil service. So if you want to stick this merit principle in here somewhere else, or just ignore it. I mean, the administrator is going to.
That would be the hope.
I think that that's tying more back into what Nina's always been concerned about, right? We have some performance review that we can quantify or qualify that the person's doing their job
Well, they-
well. I think that's what that's looking for.
Right, but I mean, we have to delineate everything regarding it.
No, but I think it's guardrail, right? This is,
Yeah.
this is
short
this is a
paragraph.
very fine guardrail. I would put a period after practical and get rid of except otherwise provided by council, right? Because we're gonna do it the right way unless council says otherwise, doesn't sound like a very good guardrail to me,
Yeah, that's.
but that's how I see this, right? It's explicitly saying, hey, we should be looking at the people and making sure we have our hiring qualified people, right? And, continuing on that road. Otherwise, it could just be lost.
Because what's the point of ensuring that we have job descriptions if we then don't have some sort of merit principle built in to our processes?
Yeah, and I like the idea of having a merit system that is performed by the direct manager, as it is
Yes.
in any situation.
Yeah, exactly.
And then your council still has your hire and fire authority, and they should not be involved in that merit at all.
Right, right.
Agreed.
If you want to appropriate funds for an overall budget increase for merit, then that's one thing. But as far as specific,
I want to make it clear, I'm not against any of that. I just think that we need to quit talking about it in this paragraph.
Move on.
I would love to talk about it.
And we can lose the next paragraph, because it's.
Yeah, civil, be a civil service.
The only question I have on that is, it specifies that positions in the police are classified a certain way. Do we need to do that? Do we need to call that out, or is that just a new fancy?
That's something we're gonna have to talk to our legal counsel.
There's a whole section on police.
Yes, I would have the police chief talk that there are specific ways that they are promoted and demoted within police hierarchies, and they differ.
isn't
So
there union stuff involved?
not at your level, not the village level,
They don't have unions?
not the same way. When you reach the city, you have to have bargaining units, right? But here, that's different in the village. You don't have to run into that ever. So, but yes, legal counsel and talk to police chief at some point. He'll help set you straight on what's necessary.
All right, cool, so I'll just talk it up. 807 done, yay. No, it's not. C, elected and appointed offices. Appointments to and removal from all elected and appointed offices, including boards, commissions, committees, et cetera, shall be made in accordance with specific applicable provisions of this charter or the specific applicable legislation of the village, and is not subject to the merit principle that we previously discussed. I don't know if we need this.
I think it's just explicitly stating that if you're not appointments. to-
Yeah, appointments to and removal from all elected and appointed offices.
So
Are
I.
governed by the charter or the legislation, are not governed by our merit principle. In other words, you're not giving your council person a merit review and saying, you sucked at your job this year, we're kicking you out even though you're elected.
So.
That's how I'm reading it.
So the merit principle doesn't say anything about reviewing. It is merely hiring by merit.
Right.
But where with C, right, we cannot, in my opinion, put any merit principle on elected people, because that's not how it works.
Right, and I think
But the
that's-
appointed offices, I think, should be beholden to a merit principle.
You're saying take out the elected part to be appointed.
Yeah,
But I would also assume that if we remove this altogether, that's what we want to do, right? Because this is slicing out appointed offices. If we don't slice them out, then they're.
yeah, you're absolutely right about that. If we
Well,
don't call them, then they're not called and they're automatically in.
well, I don't know if they're automatically in. You just-
Yeah,
this is-
they are.
don't need to
The
have
reason why this paragraph exists in this example charter is because they were explicitly slicing this out so that someone could appoint not based on merit.
Right.
By removing
Right,
it, we all.
Shall not be subject to.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a carve out.
I would disagree with that. I think it's worth calling out if you have to appoint or promote based on merit. Because if you don't say that that's how you do it, then you just appoint or promote based on, I mean, I like that they work the interview best.
All appointments and promotions of municipal employees shall be made on the basis of merit. That's the merit principle.
Yes, keep that. You have to have that.
I
So,
don't think we disagree with Brian. I don't think we were disagreeing.
well,
Yes,
she's saying,
they are.
she's just saying she wants to say it again.
Oh,
Am
Right,
I?
she says, yeah, say it twice is what she's saying.
Am I?
Yes.
That's not what you're saying. You're saying, that's not what she's saying at all.
I don't understand.
so my understanding is that we don't want to apply the merit principle to elected officials, but we do want to apply it to appointed ones. Is that correct? I think that's what everyone's saying.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
I think we're all on the same page.
Right, and so,
But it's how it
it is
says.
the
is what we're doing.
easiest way to do that would be to remove this C altogether.
Yes, because it said,
It's already-
it shall not be subject to section 807A,
Yeah.
which is the merit.
Which is the merit principle.
So it's saying,
That's why we
It's not
need this
subject.
out.
Well, do we just want to remove policy or just the appointed portion?
All of C.
No, because he wants to remove the elected. He's saying the appointed already
But
are.
we can't, there is no legal metric or method by which to apply a merit principle to an elected person because.
And that's
we got
fine. I don't
elected-
agree on that.
Right, so the explicit call out here isn't useful either.
It's
So-
not useful at all. We just need to eliminate it.
Just a quick question and just a point. When we talk appointed, I can't see the board from here, but when we talk appointed, are we also, is this also referring, I just want to make sure it doesn't refer to your members of P and Z or your citizens at large that serve on your various boards and commissions?
Well, right now, yes, it does.
Specifically,
Right now, it absolutely does. It's,
So I would recommend, this is just my 2 cents on not ever seeing this done this way before, but I would say just make sure you exempt people who are volunteer citizens on these boards and commissions. Because
Okay,
they serve an appointment and for a period of time, if they're no good, they can be removed as a process. The mayor and council can do that.
non-director appointed offices. That's what
well, appointments to removal from, remove elected and appointed, what you said, direct,
non-director.
not, okay, appointed, non-director, non-elected offices. Or it should say positions.
Or how Eric just said it a really good way, citizen, volunteer.
So you're appointed, yeah, boards and commissions, citizen, at-large citizen, volunteers, and appointed members of boards and commissions, something along those lines.
But we have to exclude paid employees, or the merit principle is pointless.
Can they be all paid employees unless they're elected?
So
It does, it doesn't say employees at all. It says appointed officials, offices, including boards, commissions, and committees.
So-
didn't we say we were gonna go with this A, merit principle all appointments and promotions
Well,
of municipal employees?
But then Eric brought up the fact that, so the, someone planning and zoning,
Appointed.
who is, all the people on the planning and zoning commission are appointed.
Like,
But we wouldn't necessarily expect them all to have, the necessary merit to be qualified per se. Like, we're not expecting them all to be architects or landscape architects or, zoning experts or they're citizens on the,
But would that count as an employee?
but they're appointed.
No.
So in A, it says
All appointments.
And promotions of municipal employees.
Okay, so that's,
All together now.
you're excluded then.
All right, then, sorry, I got lost there for a second. Go ahead. I think we're still clear to strike C.
That's, yes.
City thinks not.
Robust.
No.
Those,
What, isn't the fire chief volunteer though?
Yep.
So would that exclude the fire chief?
well,
Yeah, there needs to be some pay for the fire chief.
people have been begging to hire one for a long time.
Long time.
Well, I mean, would someone like an explanation of that?
I would.
Yeah.
You added.
So right now, the EMS fire chief reports to the mayor. But they are also in a relationship. And so it seems like it would be.
I'm done.
And,
This who around, she, no, stop, stop.
And however, there's no, nobody, wants to talk about nepotism or, you shouldn't supervise someone that, you have a direct relationship with. However, then they say, well, the person is volunteer, therefore it's okay. So just saying, that's why we would kind of would like a little more professional,
Can that be in the administrative?
it's
Should it be something to find that out?
Well, I think that if there was a safety director and the EMS person is appointed to a safety director rather than, but even then, the safety director and the EMS person should have a personal relationship. There should be these,
It's reasonable.
yes. Most organizations,
Nepotism is usually done fine.
right,
I think it's in the handbook, is it not?
it should be.
It's in our
Well,
handbook. No, there is a rule of handbook.
Yeah, yeah.
There is, it's in.
But then it's always because of the personal paid, which actually shouldn't have anything to do with it.
Just out of curiosity, other than the interesting explanation, I have no idea how we got there.
It
Was that pertinent to something in the
It
administrative?
was.
Bring it back, someone.
It was appointments of people that are volunteers.
Yeah, and so since they're not paid, they're director, they would not be an employee, so they would.
It would be an exception to that.
Yeah.
Right.
But we have a means to get rid of a volunteer, though, right? If you don't want.
Well,
So in this
getting
case,
rid of a volunteer is a little bit tricky.
so in this case, it would be council's consent, right? So if council chose to withdraw their consent of that individual in that role, that would be the end of it.
But can they do that once consent is given? Is there
Of course.
is there a mechanism
They
for that
serve the
review?
pleasure of the administrator and council, that's what it says there.
So what,
So council could remove their consent.
if I may, I think the way that this is handled in other municipalities with that language is that the administrator, for example, let's say there was an issue with the police chief, right? Whose appointment is made by the administrator, and at that point, council gives their consent. Now, councils change, and so what typically happens is, even if they're not happy with this appointment, the desire to remove them comes back up from the administrator. It's initiated from the administrator. So if the administrator is having a problem, brings it back up, then council can vote to remove consent. I believe that's how it works in this case. Now, the way that the stopgap is that the administrator has 4 bosses. So if there is a conflict there at some point, there usually is meshed out between the administrator and council, and then they will get rid of let's just say it's the police chief. They get rid of the police chief. So that's typically how it works.
I believe there is not.
Is there, do you know, Eric, because I know I was in a situation where, a volunteer EMS director could not be removed from his position, even though the township trustees desperately wanted him to be removed from his position. And this was an issue of state statute.
I'm not familiar with that one. That's, some of this, just if I may, some of this may, from a language standpoint, may need some legal counsel advisement. I would just say to hold that thought and let your legal counsel review. It's a good question. I'm not familiar with that case.
So is our concern about how to review someone, not that,
Just to make sure we're including
I mean,
everyone we
just
want
department.
included.
Yes.
Just, we want to make sure that we're including everyone that we want to include and not being left out by people.
I think so.
I would like to, people, look at the Taskala. Taskala went ahead and said there'd be a director of law, and said there'd be a director of finance, and then they mentioned these other administrative departments that they would like.
Oh, yes, this is,
This is itemized, yes.
okay.
And they are mentioning some of the ones that we did, although we were talking about, they have police services and fire services. We don't need utilities, engineering, Department of Inspection. So we might want to look at doing that as a way to bring in those other departments.
I have a quick comment on Pataskala. So since I work for that hierarchy over in Pataskala, I would say, obviously, don't model it on how they have a lot of horizontal administration.
Okay.
And it caused some internal issues. For example, I don't know if it was this body I spoke about, the way the clerk of council was handled in Pataskala, but she only reported to the council, and the administrator could not direct her what to do, so that was problematic. And the finance director and the police chief all reported. I mean, it was a very strange hierarchy, and the administrator again was over here, so I was under the administrator, but the administrator couldn't get the finance director to necessarily cooperate on things, which was very problematic in certain situations. So they did that because of their fear when they came together suddenly back in 1996-7 timeframe. So I would just say, be aware of that particular, how that happened.
Okay.
By the way, has their charter been amended ever?
Pataskala, I think it has been, but they didn't change the hierarchy.
So Tasla's section 603, other administrative departments. The following administrative departments are created upon the effective date of the charter, except that the Department of Fire shall be created only if the city's fire protection services, blah, 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 doesn't matter. A department of, number one, a Department of Police Services to be headed by a police chief appointed by the mayor.
Right, no, and I guess I was not thinking of,
But it calls out.
it was just the departments, yeah.
So number two, Department of Fire Services. Number four, Utility Services is number three, we'll skip that.
Yeah.
The Department of Public Services to be headed by a Director of Public Services to include the functions of streets and cemeteries and other matters assigned by ordinance or resolution. The Department of Engineering to be headed by a city engineer. However, the council must first authorize this department by ordinance or resolution. This function may also be provided by contract with appropriate engineering firms up to council. So this, I mean, I guess it goes through and it breaks out how each one of these departments is appointed, and they all seem very different. I don't know that I like the differences, I just like that it calls out that we have to have these departments.
Exactly, I think that's what I was
Just
looking
saying.
for in the way of saying these, that law and finance are there, and these are the other ones. And then we can decide what else we want to say about them, but it was a way to include the zoning, engineering, safety.
Is there any ability to change this? These are all established at the beginning of the charter. Is there a way, if in 5 years, if there's not another review or whatever, can you go and add another department? You take one away?
We can add, we really are adding to, up to resolution, right? You've said that before, such other departments, such other divisions, or other subunits of create ordinance or resolution, right? So they can add, but whatever we name would only be taken away to the charter. So whatever we name right, meaning 5 or 6 or whatever, those would only be removed through a charter.
So there's no need for the department anymore. It has to go through a charter revision.
Yeah, but again, that's why the things that we named are things that are unlikely to never be needed. Right? You're always going to need a law director, you're always going to need a director of finance, you're always going to need, I guess, fire and police, maybe we could contract out. So if you wanted to add language like there was here, this function may also be provided by contract with another,
That's actually probably not a bad idea for fire and police, because there's no guarantee that we will have a fire department and or police department until the end of time.
Fire is contracted out now.
No, it's not.
No.
We can't go down that, we
They are
can't go
right
down
there.
that, right? Good, good. We can't go down
If you
So
that.
our municipalities do, yes.
So we go back-
Lump sum risk.
We just had it as the office, well, I'm good with that. So if we go back to creation and alteration, I think is what you were trying to touch on,
I
Paul.
was just trying to, if you have the ability, I think the administration should have the ability to add and take away based on the needs of the village. And it's, it's maybe not likely to happen, but it,
So I think that that's under the first section under creation and alteration, where it says, except for law and finance, council can abolish, combine, merge, change, or alter a department. And such other departments as council may create.
Right, we had agreed to a baseline of not just law and finance, but this other list that we made up.
So to
Are
that
they
point,
excluded?
That are included.
to that point, creation, the village shall have a department of law, department of finance. I think this is the place where we break out your list.
Right.
Shall have the following departments and such other departments as council may create. We put that in that section.
Are the departments we just talked about under such others, or are they
There.
equivalent to the law director?
Equivalent to.
But under other administrative departments.
Well, yeah, they're not reporting to the law director, but right, we are saying that they shall have.
They shall be created,
Yes.
they cannot be abolished.
That's right, correct.
That would go under the abolition, I'm gonna call it, section here, B, except for this department, whatever else to say, council can get rid of everything. These ones they can't. So,
Right, so if council were to create a Parks and Recreation department,
and then decide.
and then we find ourselves back to being a village of septuagenarians, they can get rid of the Parks and Recreation department.
Because it's not.
Yes, exactly.
Does that make sense?
Like, that's the question of anybody who would know the answer.
Is it related to the topic at hand?
Yes.
If not, at 8:15, I'm gonna stop.
It is.
Okay.
Since we're looking at Pataskla, the last section is acting department division heads. And I want to know what we have now related to that.
Okay, so hold on, let me see your statement.
In the event of a vacancy or the temporary absence or disability of the head of any administrative department or division authorized or created pursuant to section 603, which is where we name things, the mayor in the case of police and fire and the administrator, other than with respect to police and fire, may appoint an acting head of the department or division until the vacancy is filled or the temporary absence or disability is removed. Are you saying we want to add something like that?
I want to inquire with what we have right now.
So currently.
Yes, because if we don't have anything, maybe we haven't needed it.
Well, so currently, most of these roles that we're talking about are either contracted, so our law director, our village engineer, they're contracted. So if Gene can't show up, he's sending a subordinate as well.
Okay.
If Mike Flickinger can't show up, either he doesn't show up, but the work gets done eventually, or he sends somebody else from his firm, right? For the finance director, which would be Kim Pulley, if she's no longer available, they can hire another one, and in the interim,
You can step in with the auditor can help in this situation too. I mean, if you really have an emergency, you can find some help for
Yeah.
that position.
And then what are the other ones? You have a police chief similarly, they would, in a temporary absence, they have a hierarchy of chain of command, so the lieutenant steps up. And for fire, I don't know, very long, you know, kidding.
No,
It's very nice.
I'm sure you've got someone who. No, yeah, we do. We have a lieutenant on our EMS department, and she fills in for him when he is unable to, yeah.
So is it necessary to articulate, this is my question, since it sounds like there's a natural system in place?
Do you think that there will be 100 years with different people?
Oh, God, I don't know.
Or would you like to
It
articulate
certainly
it?
doesn't hurt to spell it out.
Maybe we should articulate it now.
So-
This is our chance,
Yeah.
really.
So it is a,
That gets us to the end of Pataskala's.
it does.
One quickie, we have both a Department of Engineering and a Department of Public Service.
Well, we're, no,
Yeah.
is there departments we're using?
That's Pascal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna call them out like this, and then we're not gonna use any of the other language, we'll just use the idea of bullet points, basically. That's my understanding.
That's fine.
That everything really frames it.
It's 8:15, so from here, what I wanna do is take the notes that I compiled into notes for Kelly to create a draft for us. If I've taken any notes incorrectly, then I'll just own that, and we can yell at Kelly for it later. Yes, ma'am.
A little question, because it came up when I was talking about, police going there. Do we have some of our questions for Renette about the having, we keep seeing it over and over again where police report to the mayor.
That
And I've
was,
never seen it as an administrative, and so if there was a reason.
that was one of the questions that I wanted Renette to answer.
Okay. Just want to make sure it's on the list.
I think it might be the only question I'll say. You might only have one, but I'll put it on our phone.
I just want to make sure. Double check.
So we had toyed around with the idea, and I'm gonna go back out there, of, do we want to have our required departments be law, police, and fire, or do we just want to make one department safety?
I would advocate one department of safety.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a full blown fire department.
No, we don't.
So then we, I don't see it.
Stifle yourself.
She offered me an annex.
I see she's taking one.
I took one, yeah.
Yes, is the answer.
Yeah, there you are. All right, is there anything else on the matters of administrative departments and personnel systems that you didn't touch on by going through these templates that you guys have questions on? Do we all feel comfortable with the appointment process? The last thing on here is, the last thing I'll note from Paul is, given the village size, it may be worth considering a provision regarding contract services, so you don't have a full-time employee, particularly with respect to services that substitute for or supplement services provided by village personnel. Report 7.03 provides.
We currently contract for law director and engineer. And I think we should absolutely provide for that.
So we want to add contract services section in our charter.
Well, if we're doing it the same way that Pascal has it, I think in those sections, we should use their same language that they have,
Right.
where it says,
You can either hire somebody or contracts, contract with service.
yeah, so if you look at Department of Engineering, it says this function may also be provided by a contract with appropriate engineering firms as determined selected by council by ordinance or resolution.
Yeah, I know it breaks it out. Do you want to break it out per section, or do we just want a general clause saying that any of these things can be contract services?
I would rather do it by department.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, finish the question, and which department do you think it would be contractable versus not?
Law, contractable,
Law.
finance director.
Are or are not contractable?
R is law engineering, right?
Well, we've got safety, we got rid of law, why everyone safety.
Oh, so law,
No, we didn't get rid of law.
We didn't get rid of law.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
law and engineering
That's what I got the wrong arrow.
are contract, right?
And then also said police and
So I
fire.
thought we
Safety.
had, I thought we,
We got
so
safety, we got law, we got safety.
law, safety,
Engineering.
engineering.
I understand.
I thought they wanted planning and
Yes.
zoning.
Yeah, with appropriate adjacent municipalities.
And we
And we
did,
feel the same way about police, because that's now more safety.
Oh,
Right, so what we're saying is that we can either do it ourselves, or we can,
Contract out.
get a hold of Linden or get a hold of Columbus. I think that, and do that,
well,
make it
okay,
otherwise.
so we're talking about departments. No, I guess we do have to say it that way. Yep. Okay. Yes, but here's my fear is that if we say contract when it comes to safety, specifically police and fire, okay? If we don't specify with appropriate adjacent municipalities, what's to stop the village from hiring, Securitas as our police department? Nothing.
They don't have police.
I don't think I have
powers.
police powers.
And for a police department, they have to have police powers. They have to have these
Wait, hold on.
certificates.
No, I know that, but I understand that.
Very simple answer is that there is a roundabout way to do what she's doing, but it would require some very interesting maneuvers.
Yes,
For example, you would have to take everything out of the public right away and make it a private street, which you could do, and then everybody would be responsible for private streets, and then you could get rid of your police department, hire Securitas, because.
Right.
And they would not have police powers or arrest powers, right? So you could do that.
Yep.
But they can't make it a legal stop. They don't have any of those authority under the Iowa Revised Code to do so on public right away, right? So,
The intent would be like running laws. They would contract under the township.
London
Township, London Township, and that's what the intent. You're right, we don't want secure laws.
Right,
We
so,
want to do it all right.
with appropriate local municipality.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't think I'll figure that part out, I'll word it, what you said. You're really, okay. Finance, contractual, no.
No,
No.
Okay.
Although,
I'd rather have you.
that's full time.
Zoning and planning, contractual or not?
Sure.
to have the zoning officer be a zoning employee,
The person who is the director of the blah, 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 can be a contract. The contract is what it's supposed to direct. Hire.
So the zoning fellow could still be an employee, but it would be the director.
Well, it could be, and this is by the choice of council, right? So we're not saying what we're doing, we're just saying, if there's something that you can contract the service to, then if they so choose. Is there such a thing?
yes, so just so we have a little history of me, so when I was first approached, they asked me what my contractual rate would be to come in and do the work they wanted me to do. And after we went back and forth, it turned out it would be much more effective and beneficial for all parties involved to make me a permanent part-time employee, an exempt permanent part-time employee, to do what I do now, because my private rate is expensive, right, for doing zoning work, and then you get much less hours out of me. So this worked out nicely for everyone.
Okay, and then engineer.
Yes.
yes.
Contractual? So the only thing that's not contractable in our list here is finance.
It's what do I have? All positions.
Well, you've got the,
Because that means in future times, if they change the charter, they would just change amend that one section.
I mean, there's no, if it says all of them are,
I mean, just going for.
I don't know why we would exclude finance, because in the future, it may be cheaper to hire a firm to do this job for the village. I'm not saying that and it may be something perfectly legitimate that, and the village gets perfectly good services from this firm. It doesn't mean that the village has to do it, it just gives them the option to do it.
Contractual.
Is there a level of continuity in the finance?
I actually think there might be state statute that requires that person to be employed. Eric,
That one, I would say check with legal counsel
Yeah.
specifically on because they
Because I
could be.
yeah, that finance director, fiscal officer person is a role that's established by state statute.
But would it matter if we say that the state statute would override what we say?
No, it may not if you're charged. That's why you want
And
to
I
check
think
the
that
legal
that
counsel.
was- Because there's just something about the
The person.
detail and the continuity in that detail that would be,
It comes a long way from 7 years ago of being an elected person to dreaming about it being a contracted outside firm. That's a big stretch,
it
right?
really is.
I hear what you're saying.
I'm not saying that I want this,
I know,
I'm
you're
saying
saying-
that in
And there's something about
the future, the village may actually need it.
But having Jean send someone to a meeting, and because it's the firm that we kind of are contracting it with, it's very different than just saying, sure, let so-and-so come in and write checks for everybody, and let so-and-so come in and do the appropriations, and da-da-da come in and do this.
I actually disagree with you entirely. It's the same thing as an accounting firm. It's the same thing as an accounting firm. It's exactly the same. It's all, if there's a company that specializes in this, there would be, in my mind, particularly if we have a contract with a company and the contract talks all about malfeasance and everything else.
So we've already got a question to ask, if it can even be, because again, I think.
No,
I don't know. Right,
So
so,
why don't we argue about it after we get that answer?
fair.
Oh, you know,
Yeah, we'll learn.
we'll probably all change sides a couple times.
Yeah, we do that. We generally
There'll be some
do that.
questions from
All right,
Brian that
5
are
minutes.
provocative.
5 minutes, I wanted to ask, in the interest of a public meeting in the first week of April, what do we want to cover specifically?
We set the date and everything.
I think we.
I would love.
Have you had a guy to the church?
Yes,
April 6th.
April 6th.
I think we talked about, the charter that we have drafted that we adopted. We have agreed that that's.
How high level do you want to go with that?
Certainly, I have had 5 citizens ask me to put it on our website.
Right?
What we already have, even the sections that are disputed, and we haven't finished.
No,
So that they know what
no,
direction in which we're headed.
No.
I wouldn't put anything up that we haven't already as a group said.
Agreed.
yes.
Oh,
Because-
we changed direction a lot. The detail thing we agreed to, and now we don't agree. I may not agree.
We know our color coding, but they don't.
Yeah, no, I would put anything that we haven't already agreed to, but
But at a high level, I think we can.
well,
We agree that thing, here's the form of government we've agreed
Yeah,
to,
yeah, those-
here's the thing that
if
we've
we-
reviewed.
the things in green, yes. If it's in green on Kelly's, how do you do? I believe.
How do you do?
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
It seems we have to make an effort to point out a couple examples of how things are different.
So what I'd like to do, you're not gonna do it, right?
I'm not.
Want to give you an agenda?
Saturday.
I feel like that should be illegal. We're gonna work on that.
What time is it?
Thursday or
No,
Sunday?
the
Where are we?
April 6th.
I have not made it that from. Oh,
Okay.
What time did you do the last?
did you do the last one in the afternoon?
Two to five.
Yeah.
Two to five.
That was a good time.
Yeah, I think so.
You said 2?
I think so also. That's where you heard it first.
Okay. And
I did not say a specific time in this meeting. I may have said it earlier. Yes, sir.
Would it be appropriate, we'll obviously talk about the things that we've decided. I don't know how you do it without opening a can of worms, but if we mention that these are the areas that we are yet to evaluate, we're not going to cover them today.
How about this? How about I make Brian work before he leaves? And get together with Brian, put together an outline of what we want to make that presentation look like. Bring it to the meeting next Thursday. Talk it through before we start diving into the stuff that we can take all day talking about. And just see if you guys like the path we're going down, if we do, we can speak to it. So that way we can make a presentation the week after. So we have to put that together based on the calendar, and we need to know what's for that presentation.
So what kind of, reaction from individuals comment-wise did we get in the last meeting?
It was very mild.
Yeah, there was any strong feelings, I think.
No, I think there were good questions.
Yeah, there were
We
good
moved to-
questions.
We're very interested, I don't think there were strong feelings.
If I was a resident, I would be delighted to hear what we've decided upon, but I would also like to, because I don't know all of the ins and outs, I'd like to know the direction, not the direction, areas that we are yet to address, okay?
Like the articles that we still have.
Yeah, just so that they understand kind of what's involved, and we're not, and then close it out and say we're not going to address it, but to let them know the direction that we're heading.
I think the big
So
item
we-
too is, they're questioning the administrator, the mayor, just still more more, you know, how that fits in, because it's gonna be the big difference.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing is what does our process look like? People can't come to the meeting to watch the live stream for whatever reason. What are we doing right now? Explain that. And then for the things that we've reviewed at a high level, talk about, you know, this is the form of government, here's what this is looking like. I don't have that written out yet. For those particular things, again, very high level. I don't know that we need to present the entire written article. That's way too much detail, but just high level, here's what we're looking at.
Or so a few people there that maybe the different people who came would need a review too.
But I agree with you, Dick. I think we need, like, what more we have left to
Yeah,
do.
what have we done? What are we working on now, and where are we going?
Where are we going?
Yeah, very broad term,
Yeah.
and exclude arguments and discussions of things that we have not. And you can do that, and we will support you.
And you'll pass the microphone.
So if you're looking for a meeting, on the 6th, distribution of flyers would be that week, first week in April, which means
We've got to have
the flyer itself, even before that.
Well, I guess in hand, be delivered, if we pass
In the
them out,
process.
all the.
But it's designed, and then a day or two to get a copy. So you really look at the middle of next week to get that flyer.
We are past, but I wanted to ask our guests, was there anything that you had, questions, comments, kind of thing? You bothered to show up, so we wanted to listen.
No, I think it's great. I did like your comment about whether or not you legally can. My concern is when she's gone for 2 or 3 weeks as finance person, we have no one to rely on. I mean, yes, you can bring in additional people, but, you know, I know she's coming in when she's deathly sick, and that's not fair.
That's not fair.
No,
Yeah,
so I
she's
mean,
not
does she
missing
not?
much.
She comes in not when she knows when she can and can't come in, but we also have the ability with that's been set up for Margaret now to work remotely. So that she does.
But it's not fair.
Yeah, I know.
It's something that, I mean, it would be something, I agree with her, for the future and different things like that, it would be nice too, but maybe legally we can't do. So, but I think it's something that definitely look into, because we solely rely on one person. If she leaves tomorrow, we start from scratch again.
We don't start from scratch.
We don't start from, well, if she takes a maternity leave, stuck for 6 weeks without, 6 to 8 weeks.
You bring somebody else in that doesn't know what they're, you
It'll
know,
take
I
6 weeks to learn it, I see what you're saying, there's no continuity.
There are
knows
ways
the
to
village
do
knows
that.
the ins and outs. We get where we're
And it shouldn't be a big controversial issue.
It should.
Hiring somebody. It's one department, the rest of the decided.
All right, it is 6, it's 8:35, we have gone over as late as we started, thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
I'm really adjourned.
Second.
Orders.
Ready.
It's a very excellent meeting. Well, you know,
Yeah.
as always.
We have to address regular.